Hey everyone, I'm Josh. I'm joined by Kenny, Shannon, and John. Today we have family gaming, awkward moments, and hopefully this episode doesn't become awkward. But it should be fun anyway. This Life in Cyber. Let's tech to it. How's everybody doing today?
Awesome.
Yeah, dentist fucked up my mouth. That's real great.
You sure it was the dentist?
Yeah,
The dentist doesn't do stuff for no reason there, sir.
I
well,
don't know. Little Shop of Horrors dentist did, right?
Yeah, he did.
Fair.
I have never seen that movie.
Add
Well,
it to
Shane-
the list.
How has your wife not made you watch that movie? Mine
we
sure
did. We did find a slot machine in Blackhawk with the stupid plant.
Save
Audrey.
me, Seymour.
Audrey is the name of the plant, by the way.
Yeah, am I mixing up movies?
Nope.
Okay, good.
Meow.
Hey, asshole.
If Shannon's anything like his dog, he's eating like 5 rocks a minute anyway. Dog learned it somewhere. Just saying.
I have a cat too, Kenny.
Yeah, the cat's smarter.
All right, Kenny, I hear you have some news out of Nevada for us. What's going on?
Yeah, somewhere in Nevada, I saw at least 4 aliens on Reddit. Did any of you see that?
Something about Area 51 and they need a pickup.
I think that was New Mexico, actually. But
Oh, wrong one.
on that front, actually, if you ever do want to know, there were photos of actual alien bodies revealed in Mexico that I was reading about last night, and that was kind of interesting. And they look just like E.T., and they were like mummified from like 1,000 years ago. It was wild.
I read it online. Must be true.
Yeah, has to be true. I actually don't know the validity of the source at all, and it was all in Spanish. But it's fun, little, let's practice 4th grade, Spanish language. It was great.
That's awesome.
Not related to random aliens, which I just thought was fun. In Nevada, near the Thacker Pass project, they discovered the largest lithium deposit in the world, which is funny because I feel like I read one of these headlines once a week, like largest deposit in the world just discovered. And realistically, it's because we just started looking recently. And so the more we look, the bigger we find, right? That's probably it. But this one was a little bit relevant to me because I've been paying attention to a company called Lithium Americas. They've been working on a Thacker Pass project in Nevada. It's been kind of controversial because they're trying to mine for lithium on sacred ground for indigenous tribes there. I think it's going to pass anyway, and they're going to move forward with it. But it's, lithium's a strategic resource right now. We're talking about the demand for lithium coming from kind of the EV, the electric vehicle market, which we've talked about extensively here. A lot of companies are moving towards electric producing only and electric manufacturing only by 2030. And I suspect that will only continue. But kind of seeing how this is related to what's going on in the United States. Why is this important? I know for sure lithium mining is very difficult to find at the moment. Currently, the top end of that market is controlled by Australia, Zimbabwe, and Brazil. Zimbabwe last year implemented restrictions where they only allowed, they didn't allow exports of lithium any longer, and they wanted people to bring their manufacturing into Zimbabwe. And so that kind of cut off a lot of our access to lithium within the U.S. And so the U.S. has been looking for alternative sources. Wham, bam, here we are. It's right in our home. The location's not ideal, and it's not the only lithium deposit in the United States that's large. Maine discovered one a while back, but won't allow access. But I thought the whole topic was kind of interesting, especially considering our interest in electric vehicles and kind of how access to these minerals can create or respond to demand. We've also seen a lot of issues with more demand than materials being out there, right? We all know about the semiconductor shortage and several other issues that are happening supply chain wise. I was just reading about copper shortages and how the demand of copper is going through the roof right now to deal with all these electronic demands. I think access to these types of resources is going to be crucial for society moving forward. And I wanted to bring it to the table and see what you guys think.
I want electric vehicle. That's pretty much my opinion.
My mind went on a tangent and thought about lithium in water and how it explodes. Trying to watch a firefighter put out an electric vehicle with a fire hydrant and how bad of an idea that was. No, I really think that's going to be a big change because right now EV vehicles are still very expensive and really hard for an average consumer to really own. And so if we can bring the lithium in-house, do you think that while the raw ingredients are here, do you think we'll actually refine it within the United States, or will the government outsource it just like they do everything else?
I mean, Mexico's right down the block, so probably outsourced.
I personally have a philosophy that we outsource everything so that we don't have to use our own materials, so that we're the last people that actually have it.
I have a theory that's in the opposite realm. I actually think we're pushing to do this all in the United States. And the reason why I think that is we're seeing a lot of countries do this currently. We saw a huge push from China over the tech industry over the last couple decades, where what they've been doing is kind of pushing out foreign tech companies and then kind of creating their own. That's how TikTok started. That's plenty of other examples like that. And we're starting to see that happen. We witnessed it happen with Russia, where they kind of brought a lot of things in-house. And what we kind of see is a lot of this occurs whenever geopolitics are not very positive, right? A lot of countries start to kind of turtle up and do things in-house and kind of decrease their partnerships with other countries. And they do their best to just be self-reliant. And I think you can kind of see that with like how countries are being sanctioned with all of the politic nonsense going on in the world right now. And if you are being sanctioned by other countries, producing it in-house kind of protects you from that. I don't know if the United States would ever be in a position like that anytime soon because of how many allies we have. But at the same point, you kind of see that with gas prices today, right? You see it with like OPEC Plus kind of, putting the pinch on the United States for how they reacted to Russia and all of that recently, knowing what countries kind of control those types of strategic resources to the United States. And the United States, quite frankly, like really pushing for the production of electric vehicles to help decrease our reliance on that petroleum because of that, right? I think strategically speaking, the United States government wants to start doing things in-house so that other countries can't control those resources and pinch us the way that they did with petroleum. So yeah, I would think this is not something we intend to outsource for those reasons, is kind of my thought.
I've heard a lot about the mining process being just as bad as the oil refineries. Is there any merit to that? I'm completely ignorant on this subject.
To be honest, I don't know much about the practice either. I do know it is complicated, and there's a lot more that goes into these batteries than lithium. Lithium's just kind of the easiest one to focus on and probably one of the higher needs. There's
like
quite
a
a few
trigger
other
word?
things.
It's kind of like a trigger word. They're all like, lithium bad, because I can
I don't know
pronounce
about
it.
a trigger word, more of a buzzword.
I'm from Canyon. Leave me alone.
We
Well, I
love
think-
our buzzwords.
I think lithium is definitely going to be one of those things, though. It's like as we push for, wind power and solar, our biggest problem always is going to be storage. And so currently our best solution is lithium. And so I think currently it's going to be a very good thing for the United States. Plus, hell, I think we'll start exporting it even more ourselves again and even bring our GDP up higher. It's a win-win scenario for everybody. So
Yeah, agreed.
So I'm going to throw this out there. What's your favorite electric vehicle so far?
It's not the Ford Lightning, because
Ooh.
I know you're trying to get that out of one of them.
Oh,
no,
Doesn't the
We're
Ford
not-
Lightning also help you like run your house in the case of an emergency? Doesn't it provide
it
power
can act
back?
as a generator, yes.
Yeah, which I think is a brilliant idea. I'm surprised more don't do that.
there's
pretty
actually
cool.
multiples that do that, but I really think we're not there for trucks yet. I'm like, why would you build a truck as an electric vehicle? Because as soon as I put some weight on it, then now the truck has a 50-mile range that it can pull. I'm not going to sit there and charge my truck every 50 miles.
That's why you put a gas generator in the back.
Yeah, exactly. See, that's the point.
Or 4 of them.
We're not there yet. Again, I really think biodiesel is the way to go on a lot of things. And I think EV vehicles will get there. We're just not there yet.
I think there needs to be an improvement in battery technology and probably in charging times. Like if charging times were 15 minutes or whatever, I'd be fine with it. But knowing that the average charging time is several hours, like it's kind of annoying. But their ranges are just fine, right? 350 miles on a battery is a lot better than what I was getting with my Xterra back when I had that. I was getting like 200, 220 miles to a tank of gas. Like the range is fine. It's how long it takes to charge that sucks. But on the topic of battery tech, have any of you learned or read about recent, discoveries or at least conversations about battery breakthroughs?
It's
Every
been a while since
time,
I've actually read about magnesium or carbon nanotubes, but I don't know if anyone else has read anything.
the only thing I've really heard is the hype behind the Tesla battery. And it kind of gets thrown in my face, and I'm like, yeah, Tesla. And that just pretty much sticks with me. So I don't really go out of my way, because anytime that I get this question, I'm like, yeah, Tesla battery, and I move on with life.
But isn't everything Tesla still lithium based?
Yes,
Yeah,
it
but
is.
they also have a great reputation when it comes to storage for solar as well. So I
Right.
think that's why we hear a lot of it. I know that was offered to me when I went solar, but at the same time, they're like, but it's still too expensive and not really worth it.
Yeah, it wasn't. Isn't it like $8,000 a battery?
For the
Something like that.
Powerwall? Yeah.
Yeah. And when I did the calculations and they did the calculations, they're like, maybe 2 or 3. And I'm like, yeah, never mind.
I know the two big battery techs right now are lithium ion and then like nickel metal hydride, which I think we see that mostly used with like UPSs these days. I think nothing super dramatic, more as a backup than a primary source. But I was reading one that I thought was very interesting, and it's one that would never work, but it's curious to kind of think about the concept, and it's called gravity batteries. Have you guys heard of that? Am I
I
the
have
weird
not.
one here?
You are. Enlighten me.
All right, I'll explain it. So the concept is they use the laws of potential and kinetic energy. So you distribute energy to push a giant weight up and then hold that weight there, which creates potential energy, right? And they're talking about using old abandoned mine shafts for this, because once you then release that giant weight and it falls down the mine shaft, that releases a ton of energy. And what they do is attach cables and stuff to create electricity from that energy that gets released. It's a concept, and it, based on the laws of physics, technically works, and it can store a crap ton of potential energy, but it is so impractical. But I just thought the idea was neat.
Well, it's
I
the
was going
same
to
idea
say,
that they used to do with reservoirs, right? Where they do
Yeah.
the high level and the low level reservoir. And when they need power, they release the water to the low level reservoir. And then when they have extra power, they pump it back to the top. I mean, it's the same thing.
Exactly. It's just store your energy by moving energy somewhere else where you don't have to use energy to generate it yet.
If you want to talk about batteries, go read about the salt battery. That's the one I think has the most promise.
Tell me more about this.
So the salt battery, that's currently what they're doing is they're storing ionized water into large reservoirs. And the more they ionize the water, the more potential energy it can store. So literally they're using the reservoirs to store the electricity. Whenever they need to pull the energy from it, they can heat the reservoir or cool the reservoir as needed, and it will release energy into electrodes. It's a really cool technology, and it's called the salt battery. Can't have anything living in it, but the salt battery is a very cheap, very efficient battery that they're already using in solar fields. You'll notice a lot of solar fields have a lot of reservoirs around them, and some of those are salt batteries, and there's big warning signs that say, do not touch that water.
They always say that whoever comes up with the latest, best battery technology, if we can reinvent battery technology, we change the entire world, right? I think right now that's our biggest limitation, is that batteries just aren't quite good enough. But we'll get there. But going back to kind of the lithium conversation, I wanted to ask, which one of you, have any of us played like RTS games, like real-time strategy games, turn-based strategy games like Civ 6, Age of Empires, any of that?
I'm a sucker for
Always.
Civ.
I'm a
Always
huge
a
Civ
sucker for
sucker.
Civ. Love it.
I'm old.
Shannon used to play Command and Conquer Generals, didn't you?
I played Generals. I played Warcraft.
So whenever you're creating a civilization, or whenever you're starting to like basically build up your economy in those games, the most important thing is to focus on strategic resources, right? And so that's where my head kind of goes whenever I think about these. Like if I were to predict what I think is going to be in demand, it's or if I'm going to predict, what is a government going to step into, try to control, or where is and maybe this is more along the lines of like private industry as well. Where is the market going? What is the demand, or what is that industry? I always try to think of what those strategic resources are, because the more important it is to the survival of a country, the more valuable that resource becomes and the more demand it generates. And then the consumer stuff comes next. And if it falls under both, huge demand, right? And that's why we're seeing that with lithium. We're seeing that with copper. And so I try to pay attention to those markets. And I think as technologists, we all should. And I think we should also kind of apply that same mentality to, other materials. And if we learn more about those manufacturing processes, you'll start to see similar things with companies that are a part of that as well. So just something to think about, something to kind of rattle in the brain. And also remember to play Civ 6 someday.
Maybe that's one of those things we'll have to do in the future. Play Civ 6 as a group and see how that goes.
Should teach the family Civ 6.
I want Ireland, by the way.
Shannon, Command and Conquer doesn't exist anymore.
Yes, it does.
Get out of 2003.
I do what I want. I'm old.
What kind of games do you guys like to play with your families?
I've struggled with this one because my kid is old enough to understand that what she sees on the TV is a video game, but she can't comprehend what the left and right arrow and A and B buttons do on the damn Switch or on the Wii. So she will sit and she'll press like jump and she'll be like, I'm jumping. And I'm like, yeah, you are. And I'm like, now go forward. And how do I do that? And you press the arrow. I'm going forward. Oh, there's a hole.
Well, for
You have to press
context,
them at the
what
same
age are
time.
we talking about here?
Peyton is 6.
My mom struggled with that at 54.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a motor skill. You have to teach it.
Yeah, see, I have older kids, so we play board games and video games alike. And like the other night, we were playing 7 Days to Die, which is a zombie survival apocalypse game. And it's one of those things that's just a lot of fun to play with the kids, right?
I love playing Mario Kart, Smash Brothers, some button mashers. Those are usually the easiest ones for them to learn. They're like, how did you do that? I'm like, just press that button and then press that one. Great combos. Try it out.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what happens.
Until they realize that dad really doesn't know what he's talking about and he's just mashing buttons too.
Yeah.
I really like
Best way to learn.
I really liked playing Throw Burrito with Shannon and his family. And
that was
seeing
fun.
how Peyton can throw better than Shannon's wife is great. I'm a huge fan of that.
That's a great game. If you don't know what it is, the basic concept of it, from what I remember, is they have a card pack and you have to get 3 of the same card in order to pick up the burrito and throw it. Is that right?
I don't remember. I just remember throwing burritos.
Anyway, there's wild cards in there basically that are like war, and you can like grab the burrito and chuck it at someone. So if you want a really great time to throw a random burrito at your kid, break out this game and then go for it. Your kid's going to be too slow if they're like Peyton and 6, and you can just demolish them with a burrito in the face.
And for
I'm
context,
assuming these are fake burritos, right?
No,
Or
we're
can we-
we're going
No,
to fucking Chipotle, okay?
Hell yeah, let's
Yeah.
do that.
I'm kidding.
With the green chili. Don't let it get in your eyes.
Yeah, it comes with a plush burrito, but for if you want to do hard mode or if you want to, play the game when the kids are in bed, definitely go to Chipotle and do it that way.
Yeah,
right.
Right.
You eat a burrito first to get you all lethargic, and then you play toss burrito.
So I don't know about you guys, but I'm a huge fan of like game night, and I don't like, my family doesn't live in this city where I live, so I do game nights with coworkers and friends and all kinds of stuff, and we do board games, anything that gets us away from the computer. Because, and don't get me wrong, I love playing games with friends on the computer too. I do like Baldur's Gate 3, I do Phasmophobia, I do all kinds of stuff, but ultimately I really enjoy sitting at a table with folks. Like, I've played Dungeons and Dragons, I do stuff like that, but recently I've been going with a friend of mine from work. His name's Sherd. His family hosts game night with a ton of work friends, and they're very, what's the word? I want to say outgoing. They just welcome a lot of people over, and it's great. And we do these really crazy board games that they have. They have like shelves upon shelves upon shelves of these board games that they got off like Kickstarter or whatever. And I have so much fun with it. And one of my favorites that we discovered, oh gosh, I just forgot it right when I said that.
Describe it.
It's like there was a Marvel version of it. It's like a card game where you kind of pick your characters. Hold on. Oh, it's Splendor. There we go. It was a really fun one. And they've got a bunch of different versions of Splendor, but we had a lot of fun with the Marvel one because we're a bunch of comic book nerds. And we're seeing like all these characters that we grew up with. And, I really liked how much Sherd cheesed out over Spider-Man, but usually like he wins those games because he knows them and but who cares? It's a lot of fun. I really like doing that stuff.
That reminds me of Villainous, when you first introduced us to Villainous.
Yes.
And Kenny will come down, will break out Villainous. By default, he automatically gets the hardest character because he cheats. And he still wipes our butts with the freaking hardest character in the game. I am dumb and I can't pick up on things that quick, so I'm sitting there. I basically always pick the character where it's just like churn and burn cards to accomplish the goal, and I think I've won once. And there's like 6 different sets now of Villainous.
There's a lot more than 6.
Is there?
Yeah, there's so many different games out there. There's another one that my kids love to play called The Sheriff Nottingham, right? It's a game where you're trying to sneak in contraband and get it past the sheriff. And sometimes you have to bribe the sheriff, and it's fun to watch the kids, would have a smirk on their face and like pass their envelope to me and say, I have 5 apples. That's all I have, and then they like, here's a quarter for your time, good sir, and trying to like egg you on. And the problem is my kids are getting good at it. Like I can't tell when they're lying or telling the truth anymore. So it's one of those games though that's really cool, because at the beginning when they first started playing the game, they're like any other kid, right? They're the kids that are like, I have 5 apples, and they're just smirking behind the scenes, and you're like, let me check your merchandise, right? And you open up the envelope and there's contraband in the envelope. You're like, I caught you, now pay the fine, right? And very easy. But I think it's really cool to see like the kids get progressively better, right? It's like making them critically think about social and sometimes awkward situations and how are they going to handle it, right? And I don't know, what do you guys think about when you see the kids, get better at something like that? Like the first time they blue shell you, Josh, going to Mario Kart or something, and you're like, wait a minute, they just won, and I'm like carrying the pack of 9, right?
It's when you rage quit and throw your controller.
Oh, that's what Derek does. His controller's making some noises now. No, they beat me in Mario Kart yet. Definitely not Smash Brothers yet. I don't let my kids win. I'm not that type. I don't care. And my wife will be like, let them win. No, I gotta learn how to lose. When you learn how to lose, winning feels that much better. It really does. They might have sneaked a few in for Mario Kart. I can't do like the 150 cc's anymore. It's like too fast for me. My brain just doesn't process racing that quickly anymore. Just getting too old.
When I play games with kids, which again, going back to, I don't have any of my own, so I'm usually messing with other people's kids. So like I'll play a board game with Shannon's kids. I'll play with my nieces or my cousin's children, whatever it is. And my general rule of thumb whenever I'm playing with them, fuck them kids. I literally just walk in and I'm like, I'm going to win this game unless you step up. Let's see how it goes. And it's my way of kind of saying like, this is a skill. You can develop it. And it's the same thing that I was taught when I was a kid, right? When my mom taught me how to play chess, she didn't go easy on me. She beat me every time. And we had a rule. I wasn't allowed to go to bed until I won. And I'm the type that I'm very specific about my sleep schedule. And I always have been. When I was a kid, I went to bed at 9. As an adult, I go to bed at 10. That's the only thing that's changed. 1 hour. Ever. And so my mom sometimes would make me stay up until midnight playing chess because I could not win. And then I would eventually just fall asleep at the board, and then she'd let me go to bed. And that's how I learned how to play chess. And I eventually got so good that she doesn't know how to win anymore. And I became president of the chess club for a year. There's all kinds of things where it's like, look, if you want to be good, develop the skill. And like Josh said, learn to lose.
Did you guys know that you can challenge the draw 4 in Uno?
No?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yeah, you can. If they could play something other than the draw 4, you can challenge it.
Yeah, I did not know that until Allie sat down. Peyton had played Uno at daycare, and she thought she was the best player on the planet. So we bought a set, we brought it home. Allie read the rules, and you can challenge a draw 4. So by default now, anytime she uses it against me, I just challenge it, and she always loses. It's the best thing ever.
She'll learn that. She'll learn better, right? One time you're gonna challenge her, and she's gonna be like, "Suck it," take it, Dad. it's gonna be one of those times you're gonna be like, don't say that, but you're right, kid. I'll draw.
At some age, like, and maybe I'm going to ask this question as parents: at what age do you let your kids talk shit?
As young as possible. But the thing is it's about the time and the place. If we're playing a game, it's fair game, but there is a line, right? Like, I still don't like my kids cussing, right? That's one of the things I try to be like, hey, be at least respectful. But at the same time, you can be like, eat my dust. You can talk crap all day long.
Context matters. That's what I try to teach my kids. I'm like, you have to make sure you're using it in the right moment. You can't just talk crap at dinner time, or
Why not?
Well, I think that's the thing, is teaching them, because there are games that are going to be some that are teamwork games, right, where you pair off or whatever, and there's going to be other games where it's a free-for-all game. You're against everybody, and so teaching them, those critical learning skills is very important. I have another board game that I love to play, which, Kenny, if you don't have this one, you should totally buy this one. It's called Exploding Kittens.
I love Exploding Kittens.
Exploding Kittens is my favorite. Now, get the expansion pack.
I have all of them.
Okay, so you have the Cone of Shame.
Yes.
The Cone of Shame for Exploding Kittens is a wonderful thing with your kids. For when they're not paying attention and they ask, whose turn is it next? Whoever says this first has to wear the Cone of Shame. It's a human-sized Cone of Shame that you have to put on. And inside the cone, it says, that's the next person next. That's who's next. And it has an arrow pointing to the next person. And it's the funniest thing to do, is to make your kids wear the Cone of Shame. But buyer beware, they're going to remember this, and you might be wearing it next.
So I have to say, on the concept of Exploding Kittens, that's the only game I got my grandparents to play at a holiday. And I think it was Thanksgiving. It was after everybody went home, and it was me, grandma, grandpa, and mom. And they played Exploding Kittens, and what I witnessed, and it's the only time I've really seen my grandpa do this. I've never seen him flirt in my life outside of this time, and he's gone now. So I'm glad that I have this as a memory. But he literally only messed with grandma. He refused to do it to anyone else, only grandma. And she was getting so mad, it cracked me up. I love that game. I love that memory. Exploding Kittens is awesome.
So going back to you playing board games and how it makes you so happy with the social environment, do any of you miss LAN parties because of that aspect?
100%. I miss them. I still did them, actually, until a few years ago, until all of us got so old. We're like, okay, we're not lugging this computer around anymore.
I don't know if this still goes on, but I attended one in Castle Rock where it's actually like a public thing that's like sponsored. One of my friends, a different John, he goes, and I went, and the only problem I had with it was, it was really cool to see everybody, but everyone's nocturnal and they do everything late at night. And I'm like, I go there, I'm up at 7:30 in the morning, I'm ready to game, and there's a bunch of nerds all over the warehouse floor just sleeping until like 3 p.m. And so I'm playing by myself. And then they all wake up, and I'm like, I'm going to go get dinner and go to the hotel later, guys. So I guess I'm too adult to be a degenerate, and that doesn't make LAN parties work for me anymore.
And I think that's a good segue to talk about like video games and how the new industry of video games have now allowed us to get together from great distances, right? Like, we can hop in a Discord channel, all chat together, talk crap together, and play over the internet games. Is it the same? No, I don't think it's exactly the same, but I think it's the next best thing, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're Josh, who refuses to get Discord.
You choose to do a podcast instead of playing video games with other people.
I don't think it's the same, only because when we used to do LAN parties, when we used to do LAN parties, I used to strategize so much and try to whisper. And I know you could probably do that in Discord, but it's a lot easier in real time to just be like, hey, take a left, rather than like typing it out and then you're shot and you're done. You're like, ugh.
He's typing it out in a voice chat there, Kenny. Do you hear this?
Oh, that's right. It's a voice chat. Still, it's annoying.
What,
Josh, you're a little
dated. Age is this? What year are we in? We were using Ventrilo in 2003. What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, TeamSpeak, Ventrilo.
When? I've never been to a LAN party where we used it.
Oh, no, not at a LAN party.
You don't do it at the LAN party.
You
Oh, that's what I'm
when
saying. At a LAN
online
party.
play.
That's the last
Yeah,
time I really played online or with anybody. I don't play games anymore. Guys, I have 4 kids. When do I have time for that shit?
yeah, well, that's when you play with the kids, and I think that's what's important to talk about here. Is like the one thing about the LAN parties that I really enjoyed was, playing till 2 o'clock in the morning and then trying to find that one restaurant that was still open, right? Like trying to find the eggs and pancakes and a burger at 2 o'clock in the morning was always fun. Or seeing that pizza delivery guy show up with 20 pies in his hand and like kind of feel bad for the guy, right? But I mean, nowadays with like the kids, and I think I'll share around here too. Is I used to stream a lot about this, and I used to stream with the kids, and now my kids are getting into wanting YouTube channels and wanting to stream on Twitch and wanting to get into these things, and I'm one of those parents that say yes, let's do it, but it's got to be monitored to the point that even their mom wants to get into it. Everybody wants to get into it. So I'm thinking in the future you're going to start seeing even my own family, doing family streams on the internet about Raft. And to be honest, anyone here is welcome to join us. The more the merrier. That's the whole point of online gaming, right?
So have any of you tried to play Call of Duty?
Not since college.
Like
Nope.
the new
Yes.
ones?
Same.
Yes.
Because I tried to play it, and I can't even tell who my fucking enemy is anymore in this damn game. Because they're all wearing the same freaking clothes. There's someone come up right behind me and hit me with the butt of a rifle and then teabag me, and they run off. And I'm like, you're wearing the same damn outfit I am.
I need to bring Shannon along with like Escape from Tarkov, Kenny, or something, something that the game designer actually made it the most realistic thing ever where there is no name tags. And I hope you can communicate so that way Shannon can kill me 5 times over and feel bad about it.
I have to share a story actually. So at the university a few years ago, I think this was pre-COVID, my dean sent me and one of our associate deans to California, to University of California, Irvine, go to an esports conference to see if we could learn enough about esports to set it up for our school. Ultimately, we came back and said no. But one of the best interactions I had was sitting there watching a League of Legends tournament happening there, which I've never been a League fan, but I do at least understand the concept of a MOBA. And the guy that I'm with, the associate dean, his name's Keith. Shout out to Keith. Keith is great. I love that man. But he was sitting there saying, how do you know the difference between the players? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, so you know that this dragon is this person, and that teenager is this person, and this ninja is this person. I was like, yes. He's like, it's so confusing. I was like, Keith, do you watch football? He said, yeah, I love football. I was like, how do you tell the difference? They all look exactly the same. He's like, well, you read the numbers. And I was like, I don't want to read the numbers. I just want to glance and know. And all of a sudden, like, I think something clicked for him. He still didn't quite get it, but at the same point, there's that correlation of like sports and multiplayer games really aren't that different. But to Shannon's point, sometimes it is kind of hard to tell who's who, depending on what you're looking at.
I remember John and I went to, it was a pretty big conference. I'm not going to name the conference, but we would wake up and we would break out into our sessions, and then the sessions would end, and I would go to find John, and John was always in the giant gaming gym area. And I had like no clue as to what was going on in this room. There's just a bunch of nerds and a bunch of Alienware equipment set up, projectors.
Go Team Liquid. Go Team Liquid.
Yeah, they were, what was that damn soccer game that was popular at the time with the cars?
Oh, it's Rocket League. Let's
I
play
love
some Rocket League,
League.
Shannon.
Yeah, they were playing Rocket League, and I could understand Rocket League. I couldn't understand why it was so big. Like, I could see it being like something that you buy off of Steam for like $5, but
It's free.
it was huge at the time. And
It's still huge. There's huge tournaments with it.
It entertained me that anytime I needed to find John, I eventually stopped asking, and I would just go by this giant gaming center and find a giant beanbag chair with John sitting on it.
Well, that was when I first met Team Liquid, and actually they're a wonderful team, and I met the coaches and I met everybody, and I actually brought Team Liquid out here to LCCC up here in Cheyenne and got the E-teams together to meet each other. And to see some of the college students, see, professional gamers come through the door, and whoever has a cat that's funny as hell, see their faces was just great. And so I don't know. I think it's just like if you met your favorite football player, to be honest. There's stuff like that happens all the time. And now the kids are aspiring for that. The kids are watching these streamers and these people play video games online and be like, man, I want to be a pro gamer. Is it as feasible as being a pro sports player, probably less. There's not as many, right? So,
Well, and the esports industry has been really kind of going downhill the last couple of years. I think they're having a hard time making it profitable. Like we saw, and I would say the Overwatch League fell before Blizzard kind of killed Overwatch on their own.
damn you, Blizzard.
There's a lot of concepts right now where esports just isn't as big as it was. It was massive. I think the League of Legends World Tournament had more viewers than the Super Bowl. So it was an interesting concept. I don't know if it's going to survive kind of the economic hardship that everybody's dealing with today. It's really been kind of having a hard time, but it's really interesting. But there's another question that I want to ask you all as parents. Are there types of, like, what games do you not allow your kids to play?
All of the ones that I play. Currently, Peyton is not allowed to watch. I tried doing it with God of War. She came downstairs and I was like, all right, yeah, I'm just running around collecting supplies and stuff. And then all of a sudden this ogre ambushes me and I have to kill an ogre in front of her. And I'm pausing, trying to shove her up the stairs so she doesn't see anything gory. So from this point on, she does not watch things.
At the same time, what age should you protect them from stuff like that? Because I'm sorry to say, they're going to see it, especially YouTube.
She's afraid of the Dementors in Harry Potter. It's going to be a while.
To be fair, they have weird mouths.
I think it took me a while to let my kids play games that are technically rated higher than them, right? So the industry does have ratings that say this game is made for 12 and older. If you look at those ratings, though, some of them are a little ridiculous. Like, really, I'm going to wait till my kid's 12 and older for playing Dora? You know, some of these are ridiculous. I'm like, so I've kind of waited till they just understood. They understood it's just a game, what to say in a game, what not to say outside of the game. Again, talking about context. And once they understood that, I started releasing games that they could play. Like, I think my oldest played Red Dead and games like Red Dead Redemption when he was like 12, right? But he had the right mindset. Not every kid's gonna have the right mindset at the age of 12.
No, and I'm in a similar boat as that. I use that rating as a guide, and whenever a certain game comes up, like in the same sense, like my kids are younger, so playing something like Smash Brothers, I'm like, it's just a button masher at the end of the day. At least to children, it is. And they're beating up cartoon characters. I'm like, my kids understand that. They can play that early. But yeah, I think the biggest thing that I know my wife is really against is like shooting games. Anything that's shooting, especially when blood's involved and stuff like that. She doesn't want anything gory, which I completely understand. But yeah, I think context matters and their maturity. You make that choice based off of what you've seen from them and how they understand things. So we're very similar, I think, method as you do there, John, is, see how they mature through things and build up to it. I'll approve games all the time that I'm like, why is this game T for teen? This is stupid. Whatever. I'll watch a video on it real quick, or I'll play with them for a little bit. I'm like, this is fine. You can play whatever you want.
Yeah, like, I think I draw the line at blood and language right now for Peyton. It's if there's blood in it or if there's language in it, she can't play it on her own, or she needs to at least be with me.
And as a 6-year-old, I totally agree with you on that, and I think that's the big thing, is growing, like playing it by ear a little bit and figuring out what the kids' moods are, right? Because I have had opposite issues where I've let a kid watch YouTube too often and start noticing an attitude form. As soon as I start seeing this, then I start pulling back and saying, well, and I even pointed out to him, saying, well, you didn't have this attitude. I let you have YouTube back. The attitude's back. It must be YouTube. And pointed out to him, saying, it must be YouTube. This is why you have your attitude. And then I give them the chance to sit back and say, tell me if I'm wrong. And almost every time they're going to say, no, you're right. And they'll try to backtrack. But I think that's the thing is, trying to teach the kids. I have older kids now, right? They like to play Fortnite. They play Call of Duty. And if I call for dinner, I normally expect my kids to come downstairs. Like, hey, dinner's ready. But if the kids go, after this match, I'll be right down, and they don't say it with an attitude or anything like that, I let it be. Because I understand the competitive advantage that they have in these competitive games.
You're a lot nicer than I am, but my kids are also younger. I'm like, it's dinner time. It's like, what? Nope. Get down here. It's Time to eat. Let's go.
I have
That was a
one
good-
general. Go ahead, Shannon.
No, you're good.
I was gonna say I have one general rule of thumb when it comes to like playing games around children. Again, I don't have to worry about the things that you guys do, but whenever I'm around somebody else's children, they're gonna hear about Pokemon, and they're gonna know how good Bulbasaur is. And if they disagree with me, we ain't playing.
You need to take my kids to go play some Go because they keep trying to get me in it, and I can't get into it. But I'm more than happy to let somebody else take them. Like, go play Pokemon because they all have it, they all play it, and I actually kind of like games like that. That's a good point of like some games that are very healthy for a kid to play. In order to evolve one of your Pokemons, I think you have to walk. They keep telling me I got to get more miles in because I got to evolve, and it's funny to see the kids like, I have to go walk, or see my kid strap their phone to their foot and sit on the exercise bike over here and start spinning it as fast as they can. It's hilarious to see the creative, juices flow when they try to figure out, well, how can I get around this game and get my Pokemon faster?
As a lazy old man, I do the same thing, except I try to do it where I don't have to move the bike.
And so I think that's a good thing too. Is like one thing I always want to try to go back to is whether or not you want to play video games or board games. I think it's very important for a family to play together. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be Mario Kart. It could be Liar's Dice. It could be whatever game you want to play. Anything but Monopoly. Monopoly's ruins families. And go for it, because I really think it's a good way to tell people to tell them how to play a game, how to be safe with it, how to socially interact. I mean, hell, I even brought my kids to D&D, and one of them liked it, one of them absolutely hated it. I get it. You're not going to like everything, right? And so given those experiences, and then hearing your kid for the first time, backstab your character in D&D or talk shit to you, it's wonderful, and I enjoy it because it's like, man, I knew I raised you right, but then they finally beat you, and I'm sorry to say my kids are now getting so good with chess I actually have to try now. And my oldest goes, "Get good, noob," and then ran out of the room real quick the other day, and I was like, oh man, I used to be that guy, and it's great. So
how about that time that I bumped into you at a gaming convention in Wyoming, completely unplanned, and you taught me how to play Ticket to Ride, and I dominated all of you the first time I played?
Don't remind me. Man.
Isn't that like your favorite game?
Shut up. Yes. Ticket to Ride is a train building game. You're trying to build routes. You're trying to get those goals, basically, and everything's worth points. And whoever has the most points, victory points, wins. And it's one of those games that even my kids love it. And I love figuring out, I don't want to win the game. I just want to make sure my kid doesn't win the game. I do that a lot. Like, hey, Shannon, get up here. Let's go play some Ticket to Ride with the kids. I'll let you win as long as they don't win. I will be there to sabotage everything that they have. That's my job.
Fuck them kids.
I think that's a good point to transition. Josh looks bored to tears over here. He's like, I don't know what games are anymore.
Josh goes to work, and then he throws balls at sticks.
The next segment that we have is the cyber segment, and I wanted to talk really about the most awkward situations that we found ourselves being in our career fields. I work in the healthcare sector, so I get the pleasant and sometimes unpleasant experience of walking past a nursing station, especially down in the ER, because those nurses are warped. And I'll walk by there and they'll be like, "You'll never believe what room 10 has in their butt." And I'm just like, "Excuse me. I want to talk about what's in his butt. Can we talk about this?" And they're like, "It's a bowling pin." And I'm like, "Oh my God, how did that happen?" He slipped and he fell. And I'm like, "No way. That's how it always happens. Last time it was a Barbie. When will 10 learn?"
Wow.
It's
I don't even know how do you follow that story?
You anticipate it. It's like the golden moment of working in healthcare, for me anyway, is like, all right, I'm in an area at any given point. I'm either going to run into the gurney with a dead person on it, or I'm going to hear a golden story. And I have heard the golden story at least twice. One time it was a softball and he slipped and fell. They always slip and fall.
And I think that's a
Softballs
good
are
point.
huge.
That's horrible, man. Oh my god. And I think it's something that the awkward stories that we want to tell here is definitely going towards the light side of the job. While there's a lot of the dark side of the job that we have to deal with on the day-to-day basis, those are the stories that I normally don't like to share with others, and it's still part of the job. But I think there's plenty of these stories that he slipped and fell stories that are pretty interesting to explore.
Yes.
One of my fun stories. So when I was first starting in the career, I used to work for a computer shop. It's actually how I met Shannon. I was a young teen, and every once in a while, I got the opportunity to do some field work. And I was asked to go to someone's house out in the middle of nowhere because they couldn't physically lift their computer to bring it into the shop for fixing. I didn't have a driver's license, but they let me drive anyway. And so I drove out to this person's house in my boss's crappy van. And I go inside, and you could just tell walking in that this is going to be a disaster. And I'm talking the carpets probably haven't been cleaned since 1973. You can smell the manure, and there's not even a horse anywhere nearby. And I'm just walking through this house, and everything is disheveled. Nothing's organized. And for some reason, all of the walls may have originally been white, but you can definitely see just this tinge of yellow everywhere. Walk over into their office, and they're like, yeah, I don't know why this computer won't turn on. Go over, push the power button, doesn't turn on. And this is back in I want to say early 2000, 2002, 2003, somewhere around there. Power doesn't come on, check all the cables, it's plugged in, pop open the side panel, and just this massive whiff. Their cat peed inside of this computer. How? And I had to bring that thing back to the shop to replace parts. And I didn't have gloves.
Gross.
I think that's a story. Always bring gloves. Put that on your checklist. If you're going to be a PC technician of any sort, always have gloves.
Wash your hands a lot.
Never
Josh,
thought I
you've
would
got a
run into
story.
that situation.
I have my stories, yes. Awkward moments, I would say. I was working for a managed service provider, and we have some very eccentric clients. One so CEO. I can't remember what business they were in. However, back in the day when Blackberries were the biggest thing in business phones, goodbye Blackberry, thank God they're gone. But the guy was getting a brand new phone, and he needed some help transferring stuff. And I'm like, all right, whatever. This is what you pay us for. So I have his old BlackBerry and have his new one, setting it up on the new one on the Bez server, and then starting a transfer of files. And he had some pictures on his phone, but he only had 2 or 3. And I just so happened to see them. And I think he definitely knew when people help transfer his phone, because it's not the first time it's happened with our company, of what those pictures were. Because I remember giving him the phone back and him just looking at me with a smile. It's like, so what'd you think? I'm like, of what? It's like, the pictures. I'm sure you saw them. Pretty nice, huh? And I'm like, a little old for me, but yeah, I guess so. And they were nudes of his wife. And it was, I get sometimes you have to have a certain type of personality to be a wealthy person. Usually they're a little kooky. But this was kind of awkward. But yeah, I've seen another man's wife naked, and he was proud that I saw it.
Some people are into that type of stuff.
Yeah,
And
it was weird.
Careful, don't watch out for those pineapples.
Yeah. I think the weirdest one for me is I was in high school and I had my main job where I made minimum wage and I did that. But on the side, I did computer work. And it was a small town, so everybody knows each other. And my mom asked me if I could look at somebody else's computer. I knew this family. I went to school with their daughter. I thought their daughter was cute. I had a crush on her. I was like, yes, this is a win. So I get the computer and I think the hard drive was going bad. So I set it up to where I could transfer all of their documents over. And they kept reminding me about their pictures. They're like, make sure you get the pictures. Get the pictures. Shannon, get the pictures. And I'm like, okay, I'll get the damn pictures. So I got the pictures and I transferred them over. And once I got everything and verified everything was there, I noticed that the parents were nudists. And I did not know how to comprehend this being 15 or 16. So I just kind of put everything back together and I gave the computer back to them. I didn't charge them. It wasn't a pleasant experience. But the worst thing for me is I couldn't like ask their daughter out or anything anymore, no matter how cute I thought she was, because inevitably I would have to tell her that I have seen her mom and dad naked. And I never wanted that conversation to come up, so I just moved on with life.
I'm sure she would just say, "Me too, Shannon. Me too."
If they're
Either
nudists, you
that-
would have probably saw them at some point when you came to pick her up for a date or
You know, if
something like
you're-
that.
I don't think you're nudist around your kids.
So, as a person that grew up with a gay mom, yeah, never questioned it once. Not a problem. I know I'm not saying that my gay mom was also a nudist, but there were definitely like things that they had lying around that most moms don't leave lying around, but my mom's did, and it just wasn't a big deal.
Couldn't do
Yep.
it. And now I have that image of your mom in my head. Thanks, Kenny.
Wait till you see the other one. There's two of them.
One parent's enough, thanks.
So I wanted to kind of share a different story that's not so far in the gross area, and it was just weird. Working at the university, you kind of meet all kinds of people, especially as long as I've been there. I've crossed my 10-year mark, so it's been quite a while. But we had our fair share of folks, and we had one guy, we nicknamed him the Freemason Wi-Fi guy. I cannot remember this guy's actual name, and I never will. But I will always know him as the Freemason Wi-Fi guy. And I know this because every time he was sitting in the computer labs and he saw an older gentleman, and it didn't matter if it was the one specific one that I'm talking about or if it was a different person. If they had gray hair, to him, those people were employees of the CIA and they were following him. And so at one point, he brought his own laptop because he was tired of sitting in the computer lab where these older men would sit and work. And he's like, "Hey, I brought my own laptop, but I don't trust the Wi-Fi. Can I get an Ethernet cable?" And I'm like, "What? You don't trust the Wi-Fi?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, you manage the Ethernet. I know you manage the Ethernet, and I trust you." And I'm like, "Okay, you know that they're the same network." "No, they're not. I manage both of them." "Well, no, because the Wi-Fi is run by the Freemasons." "Excuse me?" "Yeah, the Freemasons. They run the Wi-Fi. Give me an Ethernet cable so I can go plug in." And so I gave the man an Ethernet cable. And I shit you not, 3 days later, one of the older men in our labs, he was a student at the time, he was in his 70s, and this guy is jacked. Like, he has been in the gym for 4 hours a day his entire life. And I'm talking like biceps the size of Hulk Hogan, kind of jacked 70-year-old man. And he comes up to me and he's like, "Kenny, that man was following me while you were gone for those 3 days. No matter where I sat, he sat right across from me and was harassing me." And he said, "Straight up, I know you work for the CIA. I know you're following me. Leave me alone." And this man was like, "What do you mean me following you? Leave me alone. I'm trying to do homework." And so I literally looked at this man and I was like, "Larry, I know that you can rip a phone book in half with your bare hands. If you choose to rip this student in half, I will tell the police that it was an accident and that he tripped and fell." But yeah, I literally had a professor come to me later that year and say, "This is why I'm quitting. Why would I spend time with this guy when I could go home and spend time with my 2-year-old daughter instead?" And he retired the next day. Like,
Wow.
What a weird dude.
Don't worry, Big Brother's always watching, guys.
Do you
I still remember my forensics class at CSU. That was a wonderful class.
Man.
Oh, I loved that.
I remember that
class.
one. That's a story in itself.
Learning how to embed images in hex code, that was fun.
Do
Or that
you
one student.
remember when we worked at the call center and Nick would always get the best calls and I would always sit next. I don't think it mattered where our cubicle was in conjunction to where Nick was because he was so loud. But I distinctly remember one of his phone calls with one of the customers, and he stands up and he just starts belting out loud. He's like, "Sir, might you be some form of colorblind?" And I can't remember, he's like, there is no red and there is no green. We're looking for blue or something like that.
It was the other way. It's there is only red or green. There is no blue, but the guy was convinced it was blue.
Yeah, I can't remember. But I want to say, like, he was 2 hours into the call and he finally had to put the customer on hold so that he could go smoke a cigarette and blow out some steam before he came back to resume the call. I think the call ended up taking like 4 hours or something for him to get all the way through.
Yeah, walking people through their devices over the phone was always fun. So
I wasn't there that day, but that was a legendary day. I remember coming in the next day, and people were like, "Oh man, you should have been here."
That was when I sat next to Nick. It was great. I love that man.
I think my story comes back in college days as well. I used to work at Geek Squad. Oh, wonderful Geek Squad. And we had a lot of things that happened throughout Geek Squad, but there's one in particular that I remember to this day, and it really threw me for a loop because, like any other day, someone would come up to the counter and just say, "Hey, here's my PC, here's my laptop, here's my iPod." Zune was actually popular back in the day. I don't know why. And then they would have us work on them. Well, this grandma brought her computer in, and she's like, "It doesn't power on." Okay, let's hook it up to the workbench, right? We all had those little technician workbenches. I plugged it all in, tried to turn it on, didn't turn on. I'm like, all right, something's weird here. Maybe it's a power supply issue. Pull out the power supply tester, open up the case. Well, the power supply is not plugged into anything. Ended up finding out that her son ended up pawning all the good parts of her computer and replaced them with mostly PCB boards. Boards from electronics that just were not even a computer. There was no hard drive. There was no RAM. I don't know where the hell this motherboard came from, but it was a motherboard with no processor, nothing in it. And I had to explain to this old lady that this computer that she bought a couple weeks back that cost her a couple $1,000 no longer has the parts that she thought it had in it. To the point that I was very lucky that I opened this computer on the floor, because Best Buy has lots of cameras. They have cameras pointing at pretty much everything. Because as soon as I opened up the computer and I saw that and I told her this, she started blaming Best Buy, saying we stole her parts. And so next thing I know, grandma's yelling, asking for my manager. I get my manager over there, explain what's going on. They had to actually pull back the footage because she ended up calling the cops, blaming Best Buy for stealing her parts. Long story short, it was her son. He did pawn all the parts, and she's just out of a computer. But wow, what a day, right? Imagine taking your computer in and then getting it back and going, yeah, your parts aren't here anymore. I don't know what's going on.
That would only happen to you.
Yeah, that was great.
Geek
There's
Squad
a few of us
days.
that worked there.
Yeah, I worked there as well. The Geek Squad days were fun. I had a story from there as well, having to remove viruses from a guy's machine. He obviously was doing something off, so he brings it back in. And generally, when someone comes back in with a virus removal, we'll generally do it again. It's like, all right, we must have missed something, so we did it again. Said, all right, whatever, we're good. We double checked it. We had another tech also take another look, make sure it looks like everything's out, and we gave it back to him. A week or so later, the guy comes back again. He's like, this damn machine. And then that point, we start investigating a little further. It's like, all right, when did this get infected? When did it happen? And we saw that it was infected the day, like 2 or 3 days after we gave it back to him again. It's like, look, we see the file history. You're infected again. You're gonna have to pay for this again. But I guess I should rewind that just a little bit because I missed a key part here. But when this problem came up again, we called and his wife picked up. We tried to avoid having her talk to her, and we said, you know what? Policy is we have to talk to the person who dropped off. And she's like, just tell me what it is. I need to figure this out. My husband's not here. I was like, please have him give us a call back. We really need to talk to the person who dropped off. I'm sorry, it's just policy, which I don't think it was policy, but we said that anyway. And so when we finally get the guy back online, we told him, hey, this is what's going on. He's like, what do you think it's from? We're like, generally viruses come from pornographic sites. He's like, it can't be. I paid for that site. And I'm like, well, sir, maybe you want to take up the bill with them then, because at this point we have to clean it out and you're going to have to pay for it. And so that was the main reason we didn't want to talk to his wife. I was like, it's awkward. We didn't want to have him have to deal with it from that angle. We wanted to be like, hey, if this guy's gonna tell his wife, let it come from his mouth instead of ours. That he's looking at porn and it infected his machine for the third time.
Yeah, and I think that's something about this industry that was always fun. You know, growing up through the ranks, we always started down by the help desk call centers, right? And we kind of worked our way up. And I even remember working for the state of Wyoming and having highway patrolmen bring in their laptops in, right? And the first thing I did was I gloved up because these lonely guys sitting on the side of the highway have a Verizon broadband connection, and some of these computers are so disgusting I wouldn't put them on anybody. So I think that's just something we all have to kind of think about, right? Is like, what are the precautions that you take whenever working on somebody else's computer? And I think I always say that box of gloves, which now post-COVID is worth almost gold, is definitely something I recommend to put in everybody's toolbox.
Definitely could have used it for the cat pee.
Lesson learned, right? I mean, we all make those mistakes once, right? And you'll learn about them. Any awkward encounters that you guys have done together that maybe you may have caused that you want to share?
That I want to share?
I could tell you everyone's done one. Deleting something and having to go look for a backup that doesn't exist.
Yeah, not that I want to share on the podcast, no.
That's actually kind of funny. I don't know. I think we've all made those mistakes, right? We've
I
all
am perfect.
done stuff.
I don't know what you're accusing me of. I have done nothing.
I didn't accuse you of nothing.
I
It's
plead the
okay.
fifth. And with that, I think it's time for closing thoughts.
I got fired from Train for making the welding arm wave at people, so, you know.
I definitely did not, clarifying, I did not vandalize the computers at the call center by putting a startup script that causes them to shut down after 5 seconds.
don't know
I
if
did
that's
not do something
awkward.
similar to someone's account.
I did not lock out that domain administrator out of his own domain.
I did not set up a script on a server for after I left that would send a specific person who I thought was funny a message saying, I'm watching you, on a randomly generated time interval from 5 seconds to 8 hours. And it would regenerate the time interval at the end of the script. I did not do that.
I did not send a net send message out to the entire school domain saying this school sucks big ones and put the
I did
girl's
not
name
send out
next to
a
me.
script that did 10,000 of those.
Well, that wraps up another episode of Life in Cyber. Thanks for our listeners tuning in. And remember, if you enjoyed today's episodes, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Don't forget to drop your questions with us at podcast@lifeincyber.com and leave some comments for you. Until next time, stay curious, stay secure, find that equilibrium. And this is Life in Cyber signing off.
Guys.
Have a good night.
Goodbye.